So first and foremost, welcome everybody to the Germinator. For those of you for whom this is your first attendance, as I mentioned, this is the third year I'm running the Germinator. It is a quote unquote fireside chat conversation, minus the fire, but lots of chats. And I started the Germinator here in UBC Okanagan, where we live here in Kelowna. And so it's a great privilege to do this opportunity both in person and virtually from where I live in the city of Kelowna, which is, of course, on the ancestral, traditional, unceded, and currently occupied territory of the Seal Nation. I hope that everybody's joining us today was able to take time to recharge over the Thanksgiving long weekend. And Thanksgiving is a very ingrained cultural timestamp in the North American culture. And most people associate this with settlers and newcomers to the North American continent. I guess 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to read Braiding Sweetgrass. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And the author, who is indigenous, speaks on the origin of Thanksgiving address being an indigenous and a Native American tradition that predates way before settlers stepped on the North American continent. And so this has been inculturated and ingrained in the North American settler content and culture. And it's only, to show our gratitude to that sentiment of giving thanks and acknowledging the bounty of nature and the responsibility to take care of nature is originating in a very ancient culture of many North American indigenous communities and cultures that still live and practice that worldview today. And so with that, I'd like to give my gratitude to my first speaker for this year, Jamie Wood. I'm not going to read the whole, I guess, bio description. You can find it on the website ewil.ok.ubc.ca. But I will just quickly say that Jamie is the CEO and founder of Autonomic. And as part of that, has done a lot of self-learning and developing in brain activity. There are lots of long words that, even though I'm a chemist, biology has never been a very strong emphasis of mine. So it's a biotechnology platform. It taps into the neural network of the brain and helps us manage our, again, brain activity and performance enhancement through I guess, habit forming practice. I'll let Jamie explain that way better. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see Jamie much better. So first of all, hi, Jamie. Good to see you again and welcome.
Great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So would you like to give us your 30-second elevator pitch on what is Autonomic and part of the reason why we're having this conversation today?
Oh, sure. Okay, so Autonomic is a neuroscience-based platform that focuses on improving and optimizing an individual's brain performance and brain health. We do that through measuring the brain both subjectively and objectively, and then customizing trainings for that individual to improve the behaviors that they need or that they are missing, that they need to understand and enhance to achieve the objective of their brain performance. Sorry, it's fly season in Kelowna, and I have a couple that are really going to join us for this call.
Okay. I've got two cats in the house and they seem to be mesmerized when the flies are around, but I don't think they're good at catching it.
Well, and then to answer the second part of your question, so the reason why we're here, I would assume, is to really discuss the sort of entrepreneurial journey at one hand, and then also how we take very sort of science-based research and technologies and translate that into products, and I'm assuming also try to find that product market fit, and you know, what is the process, and how, you know, how does one ever get through it?
Really big questions that I constantly ask my students in class for sure. Um, and I think, you know, maybe again for people who for them this is the first time they're joining us, the reason why I started Germinator is to give space to telling or hearing people's stories about
Mm,
transitions, these journeys, and how do you go through them?
yeah,
And sometimes even asking the bigger question, how do you even start, right?
yeah,
Um, so 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 you kind of give us a very short snippet of what you're doing right now, and I know that you have work programs running at Okanagan College and UBC Okanagan. Um, and I hope that people use this opportunity to look you up on LinkedIn and reach out to you and learn more about what you do and how you got to where you are. Um, I would like to start, if you don't mind. I was, you know, searching up your name and the company and a bit of the origin and you know, I came across the Forbes piece that came out I guess not too long ago.
yeah, that was great.
And it says there that you were climbing the corporate ladder in finance world and burned out by age 30.
Hmm.
And I was wondering if maybe we can start there and and again kind of recognizing where you are today and where you started. Would you in, you know, 30-year-old you working in finance,
Mm,
and where you are today, is that even imaginable? Like what was your existence back then? I mean, your background is not science, you're in finance. So your background is in business or accounting.
yeah, business, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I grew up in a very driven business family. So that really was not only my formal background in education, but also my upbringing. And so yeah, I think, you know, that late 20s version of myself compared to now, I would never have guessed that I would be spearheading and building a biotech company with a massive mission to essentially, you know, enable every individual to understand and improve their own brain performance, let alone like have any real insight to what's happening in these different ecosystems in healthcare and health technology and AI. Like I mean, no, absolutely not. I was um, very happy, sort of working the job that I thought I was meant to be in. I was even living in Costa Rica, so even the environment was fantastic. The job was what I wanted to be doing and the vertical I wanted to be doing it in, and I was living in, you know, one of the most beautiful places in the world, which I think made the burnout even that much more pronounced. You know, it's one thing if you're living in a very intense environment, a very hustle bustle city, and, you know, then you burn out, you kind of look around you and go, oh, maybe I need a change. But when you burn out in paradise, it really highlighted the fact that, you know, what is going on in my brain? Like, how is it? So, you know, the job on the one hand can feel like it's not the right fit. But why is it when I walk out the door and I'm in paradise, I still don't feel good? And so it really was an interesting uh, blessing in a way to redirect my entire career. But I still ask myself, like, how am I running this company and doing these things right now? And working with, you know, just honestly, I pinch myself a lot with the people that are on the team and that are involved in Autonomic and the mission. I'm always blown away by just the caliber of talent that seems to be attracted to this company.
And you know, going back to kind of that gap between where you were in your late 20s and where you are today. Um, I find that a lot of stories that I hear from young people, entrepreneurs, and those who are not thinking about entrepreneurs, those who are digging their feet deeper in science and engineering or technology, um, is a very hyper focus on specialization, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of narrowing down and narrowing down.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that there is this constant let's say, a tension between being overly specializing on one direction and at the same time the generalists that try to, spread out further out. So if
Mm-hmm.
you kind of think of more like, are you a divergent thinker or a convergent thinker? And where you're directing your efforts, right? Because it's all choices we're making.
Yeah. I think that some of sort of the biggest aha moments along this journey have come from um, not knowing everything, but being curious. And I think that what happens if we try to go too narrow and too deep, we begin to erode the curiosity that is very important to have when you're trying to create or move forward on a path that is uncertain. And so I would like to think that my thinking style can go in many directions, but I've been thinking about this recently, and you know, some of the biggest aha moments came from asking what seemed like a very simple question. Um, and because I didn't have initially any real formal training, but I had a significant curiosity around what happens to the brain under constant fatigue and demand. And then I was going to go back to school, and I was actually encouraged not to. I was encouraged to build a company instead. So that desire to always be curious and not assume that I knew everything actually really served me in building a company. Um, but I think that really being flexible in how you think and how you approach things is part of being a good entrepreneur, because you're not going to know everything and it can be overwhelming.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe kind of being and I like to tease that I'm a self-certified devil's advocate. So I always like to
Perfect.
play play both ways.
Yeah.
Um, so on one hand, again, I hear and I saw this in your previous interviews that you talk about constant curiosity, right? And always kind of pushing forward. Um, at the same time, I think, and maybe your story is really a great example of that, is being flexible and curious, but having a very persistent goal you're not letting go of. And and
Mm-hmm.
and again, kind of looking back at some of the stuff that you've done in the past, I mean, you've burned out from your corporate world. Then you started, I think it's called what, a cognitive performance training program.
Mm-hmm.
And so even right from the get-go, you were really much looking at the human potential. How do you help people?
Mm-hmm.
How do you help people be better versions of themselves from a performance perspective? And then fast forward to today, now it's a biotech company.
Mm-hmm.
So can you maybe kind of share a bit about, I mean, how you've been doing this for how long now? This is a
So,
long
so
time.
yeah. I mean, I think that, there's certainly been a progression of things. When I initially started, first it was out of a desire to help myself. Hey, what's going on? And then upon learning, deeply the autonomic nervous system and these incredible, functions of the brain, it was very obvious to me, well, if this applies to me in this structure, then it applies to everyone for the most part. You know, when we're thinking just of the fundamentals of the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic, and then behaviors that either influence those one way or another. To me, it was an obvious bridge to, well, you know, holy crap, if this can help me, then it could help a lot of these high stress people I know in the finance world. And so that was the initial start of building that training program, and actually initially really building it for the environment that I came from and that I knew. But that had then parlayed into, you know, working more as a consultant and contractor for scaling and growing teams, and bringing that training to these companies. And then, you know, that went on for a number of years, and then that parlayed into, well, wait a minute, you know, we're reaching a scalability issue and there might be something here. Should we consider building this into software? Okay, let's try that. So you go through a few years of doing that to then, holy crap, like, have we actually built something much more powerful than just scaling a traditional executive training program? And so that stumbling along the way, certainly wasn't a plan. It was more out of that continuous desire to help people, for sure. That's always been a very big driver of mine. But then also really seeing the potential and the opportunity and how needed it is. And I think that's actually what carried me through a number of the years where I thought, what am I doing? I can easily just go get a job and remove all the stresses I seem to be dealing with month after month after month trying to bootstrap a company. Like, it's not easy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we're grateful that you kept your journey, because it gives me the opportunity to ask you more about your decisions of not letting go. Uh,
Yeah.
so maybe kind of thinking about that evolution, right?
Mm,
And I think a lot of young entrepreneurs don't really appreciate how much evolution will be needed
mhm,
going along the path,
mhm,
and getting too hung up on the first idea or the first iteration of the idea. Um,
mhm.
how do you find that um, ability to kind of outgrow what was essentially a working company, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you
mhm.
built something, you built a training program, and it was working,
It
and
was
then
working great. It was, I don't know why did I stop? Like, it was, yeah, yeah, it was working really well. Yeah.
how do you see these transitions that every couple of years or
Mm.
handful of years that you kind of say, okay, it's been working, but let's try something else.
Well, a couple things. So I'll answer it in two parts. The first part has to do with other people seeing what you're seeing and then bringing in their unique perspective and then helping expand or grow a vision or a possibility, because you're not going to be able to see everything yourself. It's, you know, I'm currently listening to the audiobook of Steve Jobs, and we all, you know, view him as one of those ultimate entrepreneurs. But in reality, yes, he was fantastic, but he also had incredible people around him that would bring ideas and bring new thinking, and nothing is ever done in a silo or a vacuum. Like, it is, at least for me, my experience as well was, you know, the bigger leaps and what could be came from other people, whether it be clients, you know, encouraging us to, hey, you should maybe think about turning this into software, to, you know, attracting some of the world leading neuroscientists and them going, yeah, it's actually really interesting what you're doing here, but have you considered this? Um, you know, that doesn't all just come from yourself. And I know we all want to think that we're, you know, the center of our own universe, but the reality is that the community and the network you have around you and how you build that, and those relationships are really important. And I certainly would not be where we are today, building what we're building with the goals that we have, without those iterations that have happened through having awesome team members or, you know, people in the community or scientists or whomever. And sometimes they can make just the smallest little comment and you don't think of it much then, but then it pops into your mind 3 months later because you've connected some dots and it opens up this whole other thing. So that's the first part to that question. The second part has to do with feedback and iterations. So in the beginning, especially when we were moving into building software, our first product, it was soul crushing to have people give feedback on something that, you know, we were so proud of and we thought worked, and you know you've invested all this time and you've invested all this money and you just want people to really love this thing that, you know, it's almost like this expression of self or this artwork, or I know people refer to it as like your baby. um and it would really throw me off course for a while, just going, oh man, like it didn't land again. I take it really personally. It would feel emotionally draining. I definitely was off for a few days. You know, you launch something thinking like, ah, we've got it now, and only for people to just tear it apart. But then something shifted and it dawned on me, oh, wait a minute. Like feedback is where we can do better. We can help more people and we can make more money. So my framing shifted and I would actively be asking people, no, 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 don't tell us what's good. We know what's good. Tell us what sucks. Because but you know, but I know people say that like feedback is important and you should all welcome it. It's a very difficult thing to do when you've invested your personal and professional life and time and money and you've sacrificed. Yeah, sure, it's all well and good to say, oh, just take feedback. It's really important for iteration. But I think every entrepreneur needs to go through understanding the value and developing the craft of really actively looking for feedback so that you can iterate quicker, so that you can get to that next stage. So yeah, those would be my 2 points to iteration. You can't do it in a silo and you need a lot of feedback.
Thank you. I want to pause here and recognize that I usually encourage not just students but anybody from the community to join in these conversations. So I wonder if anybody in the Zoom room has any question to ask Jamie about her journey or what we've heard so far.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
Oh, I was giving a very comfortable pause to let people ask questions if they had any. Ask Jamie. So it's not just me having a conversation, but also you.
Yeah, I think I have a question if that's okay, Professor.
Please, yeah.
Okay, first of all, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Anna, fourth year mechanical engineering student here at UBC. I was just like going through your website, Jamie, and it's very, very interesting to me because my focus is also like kind of related to biomedical. And on your website, it says like there's like peak cognitive performance tests that you guys do to lower test anxiety and stress in students and kind of like navigate through challenging subjects. I was wondering like how that works exactly. Like, is that like an app that you can kind of like go through and it helps you like build habits? Or
Yes. Yeah, it's an app. And I'm happy to provide a link for everyone so that you can just have access to it for the rest of your semester so that we can help support you. But yeah, so what it is it's an app. It's a very simple product to use that basically prompts you to choose one of the 5 key areas we look at in terms of brain performance. Are you looking to lower stress, improve focus, energy, mood, or sleep? And then from there, it will analyze the behaviors that you have through some survey questions to identify which areas we can help support and train a personalized program for you. And then you work with a coach on the back end to help you achieve your goals. So there's an analysis component. There's also a learning component. So we have these micro learnings that are accompanied by any habit recommendations that are made. So you're learning the neuroscience behind why you should potentially shift a behavior or begin to train a behavior. And then the accountability and the support comes from that coach on the back end. So we like to really just kind of explain it very simply, like you're receiving a personal trainer for your brain.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this is very helpful, especially right now for students. Like we're going through a midterm season. I don't know if you know. So like this could definitely help me with like the sleep schedule and the like the stress management and all that. But yeah, cool to know. And are you guys like located in Vancouver area or like Kelowna?
So our head office is in Kelowna. The team is all over the world. I am based here, so happy to connect in person. I love connecting in real time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what's really interesting about your comment around how students could really use this is that you get into these timeframes where there's a lot of demand, there's a lot that's required of your performance. And if we look at the fundamentals of how the brain works, when the brain is tired or fatigued, it likes to favor habit loops or behaviors that require less willpower. So I'm curious if this sounds familiar to you, but do you ever experience, thinking to yourself, I know I really should do this because it's good for me, but instead I just am doing this because I'm tired.
I definitely absolutely do that. Like I procrastinate a lot, I feel like.
Yeah.
But what I found like helps for me with procrastination is I kind of like to listen to my brain. Like if I want to like procrastinate, I kind of just like do that. Like take a shower, like take a break, like go eat food, go for a walk, something like that. And then like when I feel more energetic, like I might come back to it. And then I kind of like just talk to myself like I can do this task and I need to finish it. And then that kind of like motivates me to like kind of start it as well.
Very
Yeah, I don't know like if that's like any neuroscientific like kind of test like behind it, but like this helps me.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like when you're in those states of needing to find energy and motivation, but feeling a little fatigued or as if you're procrastinating, the behaviors you have are actually lowering noradrenaline. So when you go out for that walk or you go for a gentle bit of movement or nourish yourself, fuel yourself, things like that, maybe capturing natural light, like getting out from the indoors and your screen, all of that is helping lower the levels of noradrenaline in your system. And so when we have the noradrenaline that's lowered, you actually have more space to move towards goals. So you're going to have more available energy for the brain, and you're also going to be able to literally have more space for more cognitive effort. So what you've been doing intuitively actually can be explained through neuroscience as well. So it's great. You're able to, really enhance that motivation because you're increasing the capacity for willpower.
I feel like your comments on that is very like interesting because I was just reading this fact that like for students, I feel like, or anyone else, like this day and age, like we go through like social media scrolling a lot, and that kind of like decreases attention span and just like focusing like on important subjects maybe. And so like just stepping away from like this screen, like it's very like important in my opinion. But it's good to know like it's also a neuroscience kind of backed up reason for it too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things happening on a physiological level as well. So when you're staring at a screen, whether it's the computer or your phone, you're holding your eyes in a state that really are more represented in the sympathetic nervous system, so the fight or flight. And if you're there hyper focusing, you can actually increase that fight or flight a little bit, and the mitochondria in the eyes can become strained. There's a lot that's going on. So even when you just take a break and look up from your screen and allow the eye to track peripherally from side to side, that can calm. So like all these things are happening intuitively for you, which is awesome. But yeah, there's some great science behind it too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I see there's another question coming up here in the chat. And the question was about if you've ever regretted going down the entrepreneurial path as opposed to just being employed. And maybe I'll kind of preface and say that, before my long career in academia, I worked in pharmaceuticals for about a year and a bit. And when I reflect back on not just being employed, but the type of employment where you clock in, clock out, and you have a very rigid, there's a shuttle that takes you to the factory. You clock in at, 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and then the shuttle takes you back at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and you can't miss it because that's your ride home.
Mhm.
It really gives you a rigid structure of work and home, and it gives a sense of freedom
Mhm.
cognitively, emotionally, that you close the office door behind you, you walk away, it stays there, and you don't need to remember or think about it until the morning after.
Yeah.
And so maybe kind of thinking about what, maybe not the question of regretting, but what have you found that you long for in the days of employment that are no longer part of your life as an entrepreneur? And have you found ways to fill that void that as an entrepreneur you'd never shut off, right? You're always
Mhm.
on the job, basically. So how have you managed those realities?
Yeah, well, I think that it is a really great question that was thrown into the chat, and I think that, you know, to answer it very directly, I haven't regretted fully. I've questioned seriously multiple times. Um, there's no real roadmap to success, and so some of the things that are part of a standard job where you're not running the company, you're not making decisions, you make your paycheck, you clock in, you clock out. There's a sense of security that occurs there. There's also a sense of predictability. So the brain really dislikes ambiguity in general. It's not really designed to be in a constant state of questioning, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Are we getting money in? Is this going to go past 3 months? Like, that's very exhausting. The entrepreneurial journey is full of ambiguity. So the things that I think seem very appealing, and I've certainly questioned, am I, has this been the right decision? Um, came around that, okay, I know I could go and get a job for X and probably work in a really great role that I like, and have that sense of security and have that sense of safety and have the predictability of my schedule and of my income and what have you. Um, but there's something very exciting and also unavoidable when you are on a true entrepreneurial journey, because it's not logical to to do this. It really, if you were to do a spreadsheet and to analyze, like, what is the probability of success, what is the safety, what are all these things, the choice is not the entrepreneurial journey if you're looking at it on paper, which is why you'll hear so many entrepreneurs talk about the passion they have, or this undeniable feeling or pull towards something. And it is a balance. But I'll tell you a very personal story. The end of last year was the time that I think I questioned what I was doing the most. Things just, it felt like we had hit a wall. It was very difficult to raise money because we were trying to raise money because we bootstrapped the company the entire time. And I really was questioning, is this right? Or am I actually sacrificing too much? And I then was able to, really attract some phenomenal team members that have been through this before and had huge success in different industries. And that really changed the game. And I think one of the biggest lessons from that is you need a team to lean on. And we had a great development team that got us that far, but we didn't have a strong executive team around us to take the company to the next stage. And so once we built that, that changed everything. But as an entrepreneur, you've never been there before, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur, it's all new. So I think it's normal to question. And we're all going to have a different level of, where our limits are. So yeah, it's a great question. I saw that there was a follow-up that came in. How do I define success? That's an even better question. It is so personal. I know that online in the social media world, success is really defined by what you have and how many people are following you, and these crazy numbers that people throw up. None of that interests me at all. And I think any really driven entrepreneur that's driven by impact, you're not going to find a lot of them posting online and showing their cars and their homes, and because that is not what represents our heartbeat. So for me, how I would define success would really be by impacting and helping as many people as possible, millions and millions of people. That to me would be success. Now, how does that reflect in terms of the size of the company or the revenue of the company? I don't know. I mean, last year when I was really questioning where I was at, part of me went, wait a minute, like, are we looking at this the wrong way? We've built something that works, it's powerful. We've proven scientifically that we can influence and improve cognitive well-being and performance. Maybe our journey to success, air quotes, isn't by going and building this big company and showing all this revenue and helping millions of people. Maybe our success is by gifting this to a college and still being able to impact tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, and the technology lives on. And I actually really consider that, because ultimately the main goal is to have impact. So success, this is a long answer, but success to me really boils down to impact. But on a personal level, success is also about not burning out, because it's not worth it. There's, you need to be able to manage your personal and professional life, and success at all costs, that to me is not worth it. And absolutely, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I saw that message come in. You bet.
Is it okay if I still can ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So my question would be, because when you were talking, Jamie, you said that suddenly you realized that there was a need of an app. And I know that there's a transition, so what we have planned, and then suddenly something new hits that kind of like hits our budget. And then it's a whole new thing that, okay, now we have to look for this. Now, what do we need? So how was that? Was it smooth? Like, I don't know if your funding was personal, if you had someone who was backing you up, because that's very expensive, right? And then it opens you up with a lot of possibilities, and then you're managing everything else. Like, how was that transition?
Sure, of course. And I'm happy to provide you with all the info. I'm an open book. So we initially bootstrapped the company. So we haven't raised any formal funding from any venture capital investors or anything like that. We received significant funding from IRAP, from the Canadian government, for innovation and research development. So we received, I think it's close to $200,000 from them. We also had some angel investors, so convertible debt note holders that came in. And then the rest all came from working with clients and contracts and trying to drive any sort of income or revenue there to then bootstrap and continue to build the product. And this did not all happen at once. This happened in chunks over time. And there would be, you know, definitely months upon months where you're just like, how am I going to pay not just everybody else, but even myself? Like, how am I living right now? And then you'd get a win, or you were able to, you know, effectively explain your vision or what you were doing, or you had a client that says, hey, I want to buy this for my team. And so that bootstrapping journey teaches you a lot. But to your point, if we were to have raised a big chunk of money and then we're able to build and deploy and do everything we wanted all at once, it probably would have felt easier. But I don't know if we would have learned everything we could have learned through doing things in a bootstrapping way. It makes you, you know, moving fast is important, but also with what we're doing, because we're heavily science-based and we're really focusing on, you know, bringing efficacious products in terms of brain performance and brain training to the market, that you can't rush that all the time, and nor should you. So I think that bootstrapping piece was beneficial, because we had to do a lot of stuff ourselves. Like, we just, even myself, like, I'm not a developer, but I did spend time in the code and working on things because, hey, like, you got to wear a lot of hats. So yeah, I think that there's many ways to do it. And I certainly have heard of companies and know of companies that have been able to raise a good round and get going. But we're here. This has been our process. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself before the question. I'm doing electrical engineer third year right now, and my specialization would be biomed. So,
Awesome.
understandable. This was something that I was interested in, right? It was wanted to learn more about it. And Professor Elon has helped us before in the past, because we are trying to for our own venture, we're trying to launch something. Yes, it's always stressful to understand, okay, are we still in it? Are we still doing it?
I think your microphone is cutting up,
Every
Deepak. Your
oh,
your
is it
sound quality is
yes.
coming and going.
Oh, is it better right now?
Yeah, slightly better.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, parking lot Wi-Fi doesn't really link. So yes, yeah, I was just gonna say thanks a lot for that. And one thing, I hope you don't take it too harsh or something. Like, what if you had failed? Like, that's the
Oh,
question that bugs me every day.
yeah.
That what if I put everything in it and I fail?
So I think that failure is a really interesting word and concept that we hold above ourselves. And I guess my question to you would be, if you tried your best and it didn't work out, did you fail? And I think if we're all answering honestly, it's no. If we tried our best, but it didn't work out, we didn't fail. We tried our best and we learned a lot. And you're going to be able to then take those learnings and apply them in many other areas of your life, whether it's a new venture, whether it's personally, whether it's professionally. And we don't talk about that as much because it feels very binary when you're on an entrepreneurial journey. Either I build something, everybody loves it, we make a lot of money, I won, or I build something, nobody loves it, I lost a lot of money, I failed. And the reality is, it's not binary at all, because if you've put your best foot and effort in, and I really want to be careful when I say that, because I don't want people to assume that putting your best effort in means working as hard as you can, because that's actually not true. You can't work as hard as you can and neglect what your nervous system needs. You can't neglect the fundamentals. Some people sacrifice at all costs, thinking that's how they're going to get there. And I really want to push back against that assumption that that's how you succeed. But I really think, and I'd love you to maybe answer that question. If you put in your best effort, but it just didn't work out, whether it had to do with like the economy or, timing or whatever, did you fail?
Yeah, I think, see, it's a bit tricky for me too, because like if I say yes, I failed, but then if I start something else and use that knowledge forward, then I didn't really fail.
Right. Right. And so the one thing I would really encourage all of you to do if you are on some version of an entrepreneurial journey is journal. You don't have to do it every day, but I have kept numerous journals over the last 5 years. And I write down thoughts, ideas, I'll write down meeting notes, I'll write down what I've learned. And I will go, every 3 to 4 months and pick up an old journal and look through it and go, holy crap, like, how could I ever think I've failed at anything right now when look at how far I've come and what I've learned? That in and of itself is part of the tapestry of this education that I'm getting. So I think we have to, redefine how we really think about failure, because you will gain significant learnings and experience through this. And you have no idea that potentially if something doesn't work out in the way you thought, what that is teaching you for you to go then apply somewhere else that's going to be hugely, air quotes, successful in your mind. So definitely keep an open mind to that.
And this is very much on brand to how we teach entrepreneurship in university, right? You following the lean methodology, build, test, learn, right? It's always about building something, testing it, and learning, is it working as good as it should have, and should it be scrapped or changed or scaled up, right? It's never a done deal, and it's never a yes, no. So maybe if I can kind of draw us back to your personal transition, right? From corporate world, finance, then through corporate training and now building a biotech. I mean, you've evidently grown in many directions in a most impressive way. And you've had to interact with a lot of people that I'm assuming you didn't interact before, mostly scientists. And my background is in science. I did my PhD in chemistry, and here I am. I haven't done chemistry for over a decade now, but I've seen a lot of let's say, the scientific way of thinking about business, or the business aversion of scientists. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, looking at it from the other side, as a non-scientist, what are some of the typical attitudes or behaviors that you've seen scientists or engineers exhibit as they start the journey with you, and how have you seen them grow and open up to what entrepreneurship could be for them?
So I think that I'm just thinking of, my behavior and attitude sometimes early on of, let's just try it. Let's just try and see what happens, or let's just go for it. And having these, very respectable, very serious scientists around me and engineers around me kind of going, wait a minute, there's a process to this, and and we should slow down and build this out, and make sure we tick all the boxes and get all the approval and do all these things. And I think there's a healthy tension that needs to exist from somebody that is blissfully ignorant to the red tape that I think, as a formally trained scientist or engineer, that you really pay attention to, and so that, that tension that existed, now I think I've taken on just from working alongside and learning so much, a little bit more of that attitude towards, okay, you know, what are all the boxes that we need to tick? And like, how do we make sure we're not, you know, crossing any lines and stepping on any toes? But I see now, which is, you know, funny, and in answering your question, that some of the people, you know, especially that would push back on, you know, the process are now just like, just go for it, just throw it at the wall. So it's almost like we've switched because I've been brought into their world, and I see the huge value in being highly rigorous. Like initially my rigor came from questioning myself and doubting myself. Like, who am I to build a neuroscience-based platform if I don't have any formal training? Holy moly, I better know this stuff inside out. Like, I better read every single paper that's been written on it. I better work with any possible neuroscientist that wants to work with me. And really, like, it was a self-doubt piece that developed my rigor around what we built. But when it came to a lot of other things, I had this like, let's go, let's not wait. Like, you know, there's all these opportunities. We'll figure it out as we go along. And yeah, we've definitely switched attitudes now, which is, to be honest, I hadn't really thought about it until you asked this question, but I think it's because some of my coworkers or peers or advisors that represent that very deep science role, like being able to push things forward a bit quicker and go, okay, like let's find that pilot, let's get that contract, and let's get this work going. I think that there's benefit in having those worlds collide and having that healthy tension. I think that it would be very difficult, and I know we can see this through many examples, to have a heavy science-based team or a, you know, heavy entrepreneurial mindset, sales, marketing team. Like eventually you're going to run into issues. You need to share and learn from each other. But that's a really fantastic question.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting that answer, so thank you for sharing that. And I think again, I having crossed over from physical natural science to the world of social science and entrepreneurship, um, I can definitely echo to see how much you're becoming specialized in one domain and then being and so used to thinking that everything works the way you think it should work, and
Mhm.
only to see people thinking of the universe in exactly the opposite way as you, and
Mhm.
it really pushes your boundaries and teaches you a lot about yourself as well as what you can actually become. I'm mindful of the time, and it's getting close to the hour. So maybe we can pause it here and see if Amy or Deepak, who are still on the call, would like to have any last quick question before we wrap it up. Or not. Okay, I guess we can leave it there. And so maybe I'll just gonna put a teaser out there and say that you mentioned IRAP and being a source of funding. So we will have Jill Ingverson of IRAP, who is based here in Kelowna, as a guest in about a month from now. So I think it's like 4 or 5 weeks from now. And so she's a really interesting person to talk to that I got to know her a bit, and would be lovely to have her on as a guest and probe her with some more questions, the same as I did with you, Jamie. I guess for anybody on UBCO campus or in Kelowna or Okanagan College, I'm assuming that they can learn more about Autonomic and the service that you're providing. And I will encourage everybody to go on the website and look it up and see what they can learn and see if they can get inspired by what you've created there. I will thank you again. Again, it's a time of thanks, so I'll thank you again for your time. It's been a real pleasure. And because I know that you have these relationship with UBCO and Okanagan College, I'm pretty sure that we'll cross paths again soon enough. And thank you again for sharing your story about your personal journey in entrepreneurship.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Yeah, we're really dedicated to supporting students. And so if anybody wants to reach out or shoot me a LinkedIn message, or, you know, wants access for the rest of the semester, please just ask. Like, that's the only thing you need to do, is just reach out. We'd be happy to support you. And yeah, I hope to see you around campus as well.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the afternoon, and stay tuned for more of these exciting opportunities for future guests.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.